Well, thank you so much for being here. My name is Dan Wickens, and this is the second session of the First Steps to Financial Wellness series. I'm going to start off with thank yous because I feel like people who are grateful spend less money when they realize what they already have. I've had kind of a weird week this past week. My dad went to the hospital on Friday and had a major surgery yesterday. He is recovering and doing great, just right up the hill there. So I get to go there next week. But thinking about, getting rich or even like, ooh, I want this, should I go buy this? That all feels so much different when you take other things into account. And that's why a lot of my financial education is focused on gratitude and a well-rounded life in addition to just finance. So shout out to Pops for doing great right up the hill. But yeah, I'm also very thankful for my family who I have up here. Got my little guy in the middle up there, and then our girl is due in January. And I'm so thankful to all of you for being here today too. Giving me a chance to present on these topics that are really, really important to me, and investing in yourself, because that's good for everybody around you as well. So thank you so much. I am the author of Healthy Dough, Ingredients for the Financial Health You Crave. And in the book, I try and give you the knowledge, skills, and strategy to make your finances a healthy and positive part of life. So we're in this second part. We got another one next week. Each one stands on its own. So if you've missed one of them, keep showing up. They're all independent and stand on their own. And I am here as a buddy, just a volunteer. So now we get to play a game. Are you ready to participate? That didn't sound like it. Well, we have a small prize. Yeah, I'm going to announce the prize in just a second. But after I announce the prize, if you raise your hand first, you will win the prize. The prize is the bill that is in my pocket. Yeah, all right. It's only $1. Times are tough. Absolutely.
I appreciate that. I'll save this $1.
Yeah. I was expecting to see a bunch more hands go up. I should have brought a 20. That would have been better.
I was afraid it was going to be your electric bill.
Yeah, I know. The delivery on that's my bad. All right. Now this time I'm going to announce the prize, and then I'm not going to clap because I have both my hands full. I'm just going to raise my hand, and then if you want this next prize, you raise your hand, okay? The prize is you get to give me money. Really? Well, I will continue to be a volunteer. So the lesson here is that someone's always going to be willing to take your money from you, but it's a lot harder to get somebody to give you money. And that's where we get into the hierarchy of control, which we'll get to in just a second. But your financial plan is going to be a lot more successful when you focus on the areas you actually control. So what's the lesson here? It's a lot easier to buy less junk than it is to get a raise. Remember, even though not as many hands went up as I had expected, it's a lot easier to spend less than it is to make more. And then on top of that, $1 saved is better than $1 earned, because you're going to get taxed on another $1 earned. So if you make another $100, that's great. You're going to keep most of it, but not all of it. If you save $100, you get that full thing. So that takes us to the hierarchy of control. And it's something that I think can be applied to your entire life, not just your finances. We'll get to the specifics up here, but let's just think through if you wanted to be a really good basketball player, what would be some things that are helpful? So for me, I used to play basketball. I was exceptionally mediocre. And so I kept just waiting for something to happen. I was the same height when I was in 8th grade. I was in a size 13 shoe when I was 12 years old. My brothers were huge. I just kept waiting to grow. And I didn't, and I should have been working on my ball handling instead. And that's where the hierarchy of control comes in, because when you focus on something that you really have no control over, like in basketball, your height or the length of your arms or something like that, you're not going to get as far as if you work on the skills and the attitudes, behaviors, and choices. And so coming into the hierarchy of control graphic here, we have some areas where we have full control, some influence, or no control at all. You're going to have way more success with really managing the full control and some influence buckets and just kind of riding the wave on the no control buckets. So for example, you can learn about interest rates and like study the economic environment and make decisions based on the economic environment. You don't control interest rates. You don't control the job market. You don't control housing prices. There are some things where we just have no control, and so we have to learn how to navigate those with our attitudes, behaviors, and choices. So non-essential spending, you have full control. Essential, you have some. I differentiate those between essential spending is stuff that directly supports your health, kind of keeps you alive and well. Non-essential spending should be the things that add value to your life, like basically fun stuff. So chances are you have an easier time cutting down on your fun budget than you do on your food budget, but you can still make decisions around things like food budget and things like that. The other thing, career options, you have some influence because you can work hard, you can work smart, have a good attitude, be a good teammate, all those types of things. But when it comes to a promotion decision or actually getting hired for a job, someone else is making that decision. So you only have some influence as opposed to full control, but you would have choices over your career field or the way that you show up to work. So any questions on hierarchy of control? All right, we're about to get to the heavy participation section. So which of these areas do you have the most control over? Just give me a show of fingers, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Yeah, definitely have the most control over 4. All right, and in the spirit of hierarchy of control, I want to take a second for, might be a review. I see a lot of familiar faces, which is awesome for folks that were here last week. But the 4 circles of health, and that's what I think makes your finances a healthy and positive part of life, is when you focus on the interconnectivity of your physical, mental, social, and financial health, with each of them impacting and being impacted by the other ones. And when you focus on your 4 circles of health and remembering why we're here and what we're doing here and what the goal is, I will invest in my 4 circles of health because I matter and I'm worth the investment. That's going to be really key when you're making purchasing decisions and spending decisions, debt decisions, like we're going to talk about in this next little bit. All right, so the weight method is something that I came up with while I was writing the book. I was trying to find acronyms for different tools, and I've actually used this myself pretty frequently. Most recently, I've used it with buying music gear and have frequently talked myself out of no, buying a new amp doesn't make you better at guitar. Might make you sound different, but does it really address what I get out of playing guitar as someone who just plays by himself? And then just other major spending decisions. But what you're going to do is you're going to ask your W questions, your who, what, where, when, why, and how. You're going to research alternatives, investigate your options, and think on it. We're going to go through this quite a bit. So when I use the weight method, I think the absolute floor of when it should be used is at least 1 day's worth of pay. So if you're let's say you make $25 an hour, an 8-hour day is $200 a day. If you're looking at a purchase that's over $200, absolutely you should have some strategy for thinking about, wow, can I really spend a day's worth of labor on this purchase? Does that make sense? But you could set your floor higher if you want. I don't know, I like using a day of pay. So the first thing we're going to do is define the benefit by asking those W questions. What benefit am I really seeking? Sometimes you might define the benefit and be like, oh, okay, this purchase will not address that benefit, especially when we think toward things at this stage might be where people identify, oh, I want to feel a different way. Well, is that purchase really going to make you feel a different way? Sometimes, but sometimes not. Then defining who does the purchase benefit. Sometimes it's just you, sometimes it could be your entire family or something like that. And then when, why, and how is that actually going to address the benefit? And I think that defining the benefit is really the key piece here, because sometimes you might just stop right here before you even start looking into anything. So researching alternatives is a more like macro level of thinking about this, whereas the next step, investigate options, is looking at specifics. And I think it'll make more sense as we go through an example in just a second. So once you've narrowed down the alternatives that might address that benefit you're seeking, you're going to look through the specifics and try and decide on which one makes the most sense. And then from there, you're going to give yourself time and space to think on it. And that kind of works with that WAIT acronym as well. So it's time to go through an example now. And then as you're thinking through this, think about if anyone would be brave enough to raise their hand and be like, hey, I have one, let's like work through it together as a class. Because I would love to do that. That's the plan for today. And if no one has one, then I'll just think of another one. But has anybody had any home cooling issues recently in the extremely hot summer months? Because it has been really, really hot. And so one that I found when I was writing the book was really, it was an easy one to think about is, okay, how do I cool down my house? It's a sauna in here and it's interrupting my sleep and affecting my health and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of options for home cooling. So we can use the WAIT method. The first thing is, what benefit am I seeking? Well, better living conditions to improve the health. Who's it going to benefit? Everybody in the house. How often? Mostly during the summer months, but there's long-term impacts of, let's say you go through a 5-year stretch and half the year you're not sleeping well. There are health impacts of that. So there is some long-term stuff too. So down at the bottom there, really that benefit that you're looking for is that healthier sleep in the summer. So how might you be able to do that? Well, there's all sorts of different heating and cooling options. You can do AC only or heat pumps or ductless systems. But I think one thing that's really important on the alternatives is thinking, okay, what if I do nothing? How can I address this without spending money? And especially in something like a more non-essential purchase, that is a really, really important one. I think back to like when I was thinking about like, oh, do I want a new guitar or a new amp or something that I didn't really need but really wanted. Okay, what if I do nothing? Is my life going to be that much different? Some cases, yes, some no. But in this case, let's pretend that this person has already tried all of the home cooling methods and gotten all the, the lighter sheets and the cooling pillows and stuff. So they end up deciding, you know what, it's just the one room, the south-facing room that's really bad. So let's get a portable AC. So at this point on investigate options, you're going to look at portable ACs because you've already narrowed down, I think I need an air conditioner, it's portable. So then you might look at different models, select the one that you want, and then you think on it. If you are up in the middle of the night sweating and you can't sleep, that gives you plenty of time to think about it more. But in this case, they decided it's time to buy a portable air conditioner. So any questions? Do you want me to go back on any of those steps for talking about this method, or do you want to go to a group activity? All right. So does anybody have a scenario that they can think of, whether it's like a car or a computer? This works great for those major purchases like electronics or vehicles or home updates or anything like that. Does anyone have one? Or yeah.
One thing that my husband and I struggled with when we were younger in our career is that, we had very limited funds. And our child wanted to play sports, and then there's various sports leagues. Besides school, where you can play rec league or select league or premier league or things like that. and they come with significant cost. And so it was really, really difficult deciding, especially when like all of his friends are playing at a certain level, and then to hold your child back because the cost became prohibitive at some point. That was very, very difficult to actually decide. So I'm wondering like how would this something work? Like one thing that my husband and I found is that it's very difficult to move to a child.
Yeah. No, that's a great example, and actually, that's not one that I've written about before. So it'll be super fun to walk through that. So the scenario is basically deciding which sports make most sense for the kids, like and which leagues. That's accurate? Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. So first thing we're going to do is define the benefit. What benefit do we get from playing sports? Does anyone want to jump in with benefit? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I used to, when I was more active, I remember like the benefits, like you just feel great, like your body, and you just feel like it functions just great. Like you would have no issues. Like you feel like you wouldn't feel like, let's say, bloated, for example. Like you'd always feel like you feel great. Your body would always feel good. Like after a workout, especially your team cares, or you're not.
Yeah.
You jump all the time, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you for that. And I think that is one of the top benefits of playing sports is the physical activity, the healthy hobbies. I would also add in there's the social aspect of it. A lot of my best friends are the kids I grew up playing sports with. And so there's that piece, when, why, and how often. I mean, there are sometimes lifetime benefits of things like that. I think about, just thinking about my dad up the hill at St. Joe's right now. We used to have basketball tournaments across the street at the People's Center all the time. That's like still some of my favorite memories ever, is he coached our teams, and it was just a several year stretch of doing that. But those are some of the most important things that I've ever experienced, even just at a young age. So playing sports has a ton of potential benefits. So then let's look into the alternatives. So it sounds like there are, you said the rec leagues, there's rec, there's select, there's probably, premier, school, there's all sorts of different things. And so at this point, we would be saying, which of these different leagues really addresses that benefit the best? What's most important? Is it just that they're wanting to do something and be physically active? Is it that very specifically they think they have a chance to like play in college or something like that? So then that might influence the decision. So figuring out what's really going to make the most sense for addressing that benefit of the healthy activity and whatever mix of like competition, skill building, learning, resilience, all those types of things, and the socialization. So let's say that we were choosing a select league at this point. There's probably a few different options for select leagues. There might even, if you're in a city, there might even be a few different options for select teams. I know that Tacoma, like specific to basketball or soccer or baseball even, probably has a few different organizations that are select, possibly even different select leagues. So at that point, let's say that we land on, what's the sport that you have in mind?
Oh, my son played baseball.
Baseball.
My daughter plays soccer.
Awesome. Yeah, so lots of options with both of those. So let's say that do you know a team name?
I don't remember
Okay.
anymore, but then the costs are, going from a rec league to the next level up is very, very expensive because there's travel costs,
Oh, yeah.
there's other costs and things like that.
For sure. And that's where I think we get to that think on it stage of, okay, let's say that they want to play for this one particular select baseball team. We've made up our mind. We think that's what we're going to do. And then you just got to take some time and be like, can we really swing this? Is this really the best way to address that benefit? Or would we be better off spending less, playing rec, getting most of the same benefits, but then having funds available for other benefits and potential healthy purposes. I think about sports again. If you're playing rec baseball or select baseball, select soccer, you might not get to play other sports, whether it's a financial or a time thing. So this one was actually very, very good. So thank you so much for the question, or for the scenario, because it makes a lot of sense in this type of model.
I think a lot of the times when I'm looking at other parents, it's really the social aspect, because because your kids are friends with other kids, and if they're not part of that same team, you kind of get left out of that social circle. And so as a parent, you don't want to put your child through that. So because of that, you kind of make the sacrifice.
Yeah, one of the many opportunities for money to be impacted by emotional stuff, social and emotional stuff. Yeah, very true. Sweet. Thank you so much. Does anyone have another scenario that they want to come back to at the end before we jump to the next decision-making tool? Going once. Does anyone have questions about the steps? All right, sweet. Well, we'll jump into the HOP analysis, which is specific to debt decisions. And debt decisions are very big decisions, even small amounts of debt. I think sometimes it's almost that the smaller amounts we might take out end up being the ones that are a little scarier, because, if you borrow for a home or for education or something like that, usually there's some sort of underlying asset, tangible or intangible asset that you're pursuing when you're borrowing money for like home, school, vehicle, stuff like that. But even something small, like let's say you wanted to finance a computer or something like that, chances are that could be at a pretty high interest rate too, and you may have other alternatives and whatnot. But the HOP analysis is where you're going to really ask yourself the questions, or let me go back here. You're going to say, is this really a good idea? And then what other benefits would I be foregoing if I choose this route? And how would I plan to actually pay that off? So we'll come back to that in a second. But thinking about when debt might be necessary, there are all sorts of times where we might just not have cash available to pay for something, like school, for instance. Chances are a lot of students have student loans. That's just how it is. And same with homes. Most people who buy a home or own property have a mortgage. Most people can't buy their cars in cash and things like that. So when you're thinking about it, okay, does borrowing this money give me an opportunity to produce more money or save more money or things like that? That's why things like student loans, homes, vehicles, they actually have lower interest rates, for one, because if they had high interest rates, no one could afford them anyway. But also because there's a little bit less risk, because going to school improves your ability to pay back that loan. With a car or a home, you have an underlying asset. The car depreciates, but the home should gain in value. So really, when you're thinking about debt decisions, you want it to be in some way that it's going to improve your ability to pay back that loan. But in other cases, there's the emergency response. That's not so much what this is designed for. It's like if your only option to make ends meet is to use a credit card, like that's really tough. There's going to be a lot of tough decisions around that, but that's more of an emergency response as opposed to a strategic plan. So we're really going to focus on the investment side of this. So going back to it, okay, honestly, is this really a good idea? And again, sometimes that might be the first question that can knock it out and you're like, I don't have to think about this anymore. So one example, I'll go back to music again. So if I wanted to pay $2,000 or borrow $2,000 to finance a new guitar, would that make sense? Honestly, is that a good idea for me as someone who just plays by myself in my office? Probably not. But what if I were a professional musician? Does borrowing that money for that new guitar, if it allows me to record better or play in more bands, let's say I don't play shred metal, but like let's say you don't have a shred guitar and you want to play in a shred band. Well, yeah, maybe that shred guitar does actually improve your ability to make money if you're using it to make money. So does that difference make sense? Of sometimes it's like, does this really improve my ability to pay the loan back? The other thing is, what benefits would I forego if I make this choice? What's usually going to happen is it's lost opportunities to save and invest, or potentially, like let's say you're applying this to the rest of your life, there may be other benefits that you're foregoing. That's what opportunity cost is the opportunity cost of decision A is the benefit of decision B, C, D, and so on. And then for plan, can I reasonably afford to make this choice? Maybe, but you're probably going to have to map it out, look at the payback amortization, and do those kinds of comparisons. So we'll take a look. We can probably skip this slide. I've already gone through most of that, but take a look at another example, very near and dear to my heart, the home gym example. So let's say you were starting a home gym. You're going to the gym a lot already. It serves a healthy purpose, but you're considering, can I build something out at home? And there's financing available to do that. So let's say you have $500 saved. So then you would have to borrow $2,500 at 10% interest. So we're going to run that through the HOP analysis. So on honesty, honestly, is this really a good idea? I don't know, maybe. It serves a healthy purpose. That's pretty great. You're already paying something to go to the gym all the time, and then you don't have any underlying assets. You can sell gym equipment. It does retain value if you take care of it. And I think back to like when I started mine, it was in 2020, start of COVID, you could actually sell home gym equipment for a lot of money. But hopefully it's not that way anymore. And the other thing is, you could also just not pay for the gym at all. You could do minimalist or body weight type stuff. So there's some pros and some cons of the honest question, is this really a good idea? The opportunity cost, you could save or invest that $11 difference. Not a huge difference, but it is something. And then one of the other costs in here could be commuting back and forth to the gym, but that's probably not material. You may also lose out on socialization. I know some people have their gym buddies, and that's like a really important relationship. Probably decreased equipment options. But the other thing is, it's kind of that like in business, that lease versus buy decision. If you have a gym membership, you can cancel it a little bit more easily, and you're not putting as much out on the line. If you finance a home gym, you're really committed to that for a while. And then the plan, well, in this case, the increased cost isn't that material. You could pay it back. Really, you would break even in about 49 months once you factor in the interest. So it's possible, but at this point, I don't know. You could do it. Would it be a great decision? It might be. You may love it. But in this case, after doing the HOP analysis, I thought, well, why don't we just throw in kind of a wild card of, let's try out some of the home gym stuff rather than taking on a bunch of debt. So in the end, I thought in this scenario, and this isn't a real scenario for me, but it's like, it's probably one that people come across pretty frequently, whether it's the gym or anything else, where it's something that they're paying to go use, but then could otherwise, have their own. So I don't know. I think in this case, avoiding the debt, trying it out, and keeping the gym membership and just seeing what works. So any questions on HOP analysis before we do a group scenario? All right. So does anybody have one, like a borrowing decision for a car or for like grad school or something like that? And if not, then I'll do one for grad school. So is borrowing money for grad school really a good idea? What do you guys think?
Well, yeah, you have to pay it, so, but like, it depends, maybe an interest rate, like the interest rate or something.
Yeah, and I think maybe I should have worded that differently. If you're wanting to go to grad school, you think that it's a good idea, but you're looking into if you think that it is a financially suitable choice for you. So when we're looking at that, honestly, is borrowing money to go to grad school, knowing that that's probably what it's going to take, is that a good idea? And so, yeah, you would look at the loan and the interest rates and think. The other questions that I would have about this are, this is more in the plan stage, but like, does this improve my ability to pay the loan back? It could. A lot of grad school can. It will. I know that in my profession in accounting, if you have a master's in accounting, you do usually get paid a little bit more. So you would want to take a look at that break-even analysis of like, okay, when do I actually think I'm going to get paid back for this? But what opportunity cost would you have with taking on a loan to go to grad school? I was actually talking to the same intern for folks that were here last week. I had mentioned that the idea for the financial wellness starter packet came from a conversation with the intern we had this summer. And she's in an interesting situation because the CPA exam no longer requires a fifth year of credits, which is a pretty big deal because a lot of people go get that master's or find another way to do the 5 years of credits. So for a lot of accounting students, what should they choose? Is it better to go to the grad school now and know that I'm not going to be able to work the whole time? Or is it better to start work now and make an extra year of salary sooner and not have that extra cost, knowing that the CPA requirements no longer have that fifth year requirement? So then on the other hand, again, going back to, you might make more when you have a master's. I look at someone like myself who really enjoys teaching, but I didn't get my master's. I had good financial aid, so I crammed all my credits. I maxed out my credit hours under my financial aid and then did 20 credit hours of community college right after I graduated to get that fifth year. But I wish I had my master's because then it would be easier to start teaching or something like that. So anyway, there's all sorts of opportunity costs with a decision to go to grad school. Whether or not it's the right decision for an individual, they're going to have to really, really think about it and then plan. Can I plan to pay this back reasonably? In some cases, there might be degrees where without that master's, it's really difficult to get any job at all. And so anyway, I think that is kind of an interesting scenario to think through of, see if I can condense it back down a bit. So is borrowing money for this purpose a good idea? Possibly. Are there opportunity costs? Oh yeah, there's big opportunity costs. But should it support your ability to pay back the loan and maybe get further fulfillment and opportunities? Yeah, it might. So we can't expect these tools to give us perfect, clear-cut options, except in the times where it's like, honestly, is this a good idea? No. Or going back to the weight method, okay, what benefit am I trying to get? And it's like, oh yeah, this isn't going to do that. But anyway, any questions, any other scenarios you want to run through?
I think this is a really great example that you gave because there's so many 18-year-olds who make this decision without going through anything like this, and the parents who are so emotionally invested in their children that they, just like, okay, go ahead and just borrow, but they're really going through any of the questions behind it, and later find out that, wow, that was really expensive. Mm-hmm. That's a very expensive decision.
Yeah, for sure.
One other thing that I'll add with the weight method and the HOP analysis is sometimes they should be used together. Like if you're thinking about, again, a car, very common borrowing situation. I think using the weight analysis and the HOP analysis makes a lot of sense when you're looking at a car, because as part of that, thinking through, okay, which car do I want? And then can I really afford that option? Or even if you can afford it, is that the most logical decision for me to make in that scenario? So that's it for today. Is there anything else that you want to walk through? Because I got time. Yeah, go ahead.
So I use these for big purchases, but what kills me is cheap impulse purchases where I feel like this is going way over the top. I'm looking at like a $35 whatever from Amazon. But that's really what kills me is those stupid things and like having these shortcuts on my phone and stuff like PayPal or whatever, where you're not inputting all your information and really thinking about it. Because I think so. Would you really use this for like cheaper purchases?
I would only use.
World? And how long would you stress about stuff like that?
Yeah, I would only use the HOP analysis for debt decisions specifically, but for the smaller stuff, I think still using that first step of the weight method is like the way that I've had the most luck cutting it off. And I don't get it every time because I think we've talked about this before. I also have gone through some stages where I'm like, oh wow, but it could be here tomorrow. and so I think going through that exercise of defining the benefit of what you're trying to get, and is this purchase really going to provide that benefit? So going into, let's say it's a shirt. Let's say that you're like, oh man, this shirt or this pair of joggers or something. I don't know. I always go to like comfy casual. I don't normally dress like this. You're lucky I'm not wearing shorts, but I figured I probably better spruce it up a little bit for these things. So if you're like, wow, that pair of sweats looks very comfortable, or that shirt, I think I would really look good in that shirt. Okay, what benefit do you think you're getting out of getting a shirt that you look good in? Is it really materially different than if you were to just wear a shirt you already have, or do you probably look about the same? You know, whatever it is, I think that first step of defining the benefit, figuring out when and how often, because let's say you're going to a wedding or something, and you're like, ooh, I could get this dress that I absolutely love for my friend's wedding, and then I can wear it one time and never again. Is it really going to give you that level of benefit that you think it might? For some people, maybe it does, but otherwise, I think that, yeah, once you define the benefit, hopefully that's a quicker way of doing that. And then figuring out, if I don't think this is the best method for getting that benefit, what alternatives do I have to feel the way I want to feel or whatever? So does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like sometimes you stress out about small things too long, and it's like, just move on with your life. Like if you're still thinking about it in 3 days, just buy the $25 sweater.
Yeah. Well, I will say part of the reason the music equipment keeps coming up is last year I did buy an electric guitar for the first time in 13 years, and I'd been looking at guitars off and on for like 13 years, and just at a certain point, it is okay to set aside the money and be like, clearly, I think that there's going to be some big benefit with this, or I just want to treat myself. That's totally okay. But what I also do for that, and we're going to talk about it more in the next session too, is I like to have sub-savings accounts. So like for example, when I went out and bought my new clothes for speaking engagements, that came out of a very specific account that I have for my fulfillment activities. So in that, I might have like another thing that just came out of there is me and my brothers are going to go to a Seahawks game. So like that kind of, you know, fun sub-savings is where I think I pull a lot of that from. And so then we'll talk about that a little bit more next week, but having stuff set aside in advance so that it's not so much of, oh, I realized I want this, now let me save up for 6 months. Just do the saving as you go and use it as kind of a slush fund of, all right, well, this came up and I have this set aside, so I don't feel bad about doing it. So, yeah.
Kind of like a cushion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always just best to save.
for sure. Yeah. So, and again, we'll go into it a little bit more next week, but I do a sub savings of like healthcare for me, healthcare for pets, my fun activities, my home improvement, things like that, where I actually carve out specific amounts from that total to make sure that if I'm like, hey, I want to go, buy some new running shoes or something, it's like, okay, I either have enough set aside or, oh, why don't I do that next month once I've put a little bit more in there? Yeah.
Sorry, don't mind me asking. I was just curious. You said healthcare for pets.
Yeah.
There's that.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know they had that.
Oh.
You ever took your pet to the vet?
No, I mean I don't have a pet. I did not know that.
Yeah.
How it's expensive compared to a human? Oh yeah, sure.
So,
What's more expensive?
I would say that human is more expensive, but you're more likely to get support and like ways out with healthcare when you're human and might have insurance or there's forgiveness. With a vet, the insurance might cover some, it might not cover a lot. One example, going back, I'll go all the way back to the beginning to show the good girl. We had a toy Aussie. Wow, this is a long presentation, I'm sorry. So that little pup up there, a little teeny tiny 14-pound toy Australian Shepherd, she passed in December, and we had pet insurance for her, but they had a max out of pocket. So as part of trying to, extend her life and quality of life and stuff like that, thousands and thousands out of pocket, and the insurance just kind of hit their cap. So people insurance is typically better than vet insurance, but people surgeries and things like that are also extremely expensive. So
We're still allowed to discriminate for pre-existing conditions for pets.
yeah.
So,
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's brutal.
cat confluence, so we're not gonna cover that.
My cat was, we didn't have insurance, and we should have. And he got really sick and was acting weird, and I had to take him to the emergency vet. And they said, you have to pay the max of the estimate before we can do the work on him. And then we'll pay back whatever it ends up not costing. I'm like, okay, so what's the max? I'm like in tears because this cat is basically a human.
I get
$6,000.
Uh-huh.
I did not have $6,000. Luckily, my parents jumped in and did
Yeah.
help. Ended up only costing $3,000, but I was just like, opened my eyes to A, how much I should have saved in case anything else happens. B, realizing insurance is important for everything. And C, realizing how much of an asshole that little shit is.
Life leaping.
That was 4 years ago, and it's great. So,
Good.
but now we pay $100 for every bag of food that we buy for prescription.
Yeah, that's. Thank you for sharing. I think the best advertisement for pet insurance that you'll ever get is a story from someone you know about wishing they had pet insurance. And honestly, I never had it for my cat because he's indoor only. But then after this experience, I was like, okay, pre-existing conditions aside, he doesn't really have any, but like, okay, I'm gonna get the max, the unlimited insurance coverage piece. I'm gonna basically bought the best plan that they had, so then not in that position of like, oh man, how am I gonna make this decision when I have other dependents and things like that. So yeah, sorry for the depressing topic, but that's the good girl up there. So, any other questions? Anyone else think that they can make me cry? Because I'm on it. I'm getting past it.
I think rationally, all this makes sense. But realistically, it's very hard to do when you're in that moment because there are other factors that kind of comes in. Because not everything's based on logic because there's a lot of irrationality that goes into that decision.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point of having a tool readily available. I think it's a very similar thing of like, in mental health counseling and things like that, when you need the tool is when you are like having your toughest time. And so learning the tool, knowing you have it available, I think is really, really helpful. So honestly, when I've done the HOP analysis, I've actually never done the HOP analysis, but have helped other people think through how they would do that as a debt decision. I feel very fortunate to be in a position where I don't borrow anymore. And so I haven't done this one specifically, but I've done the weight method quite a bit because it's usually talking myself out of something I don't need. Or for example, with home improvement, it's like, okay, we probably need a new roof, but do we really need a new roof? Can we get by with another 2 years or something like that? Do we finance it? Do we pay cash or whatever it is? I think that just taking the time to like literally write it out. Don't do it in your head, write it down on paper, use the steps. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'll add this to the different materials that we sent out last week. And then if we decide to add anything else, because this is a brand new series, so if we decide we're gonna add anything else to the tools, we'll send it out all again at the end. But having these templates and just like writing it out in a journal and things like that, I really, really recommend. Anything else? Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I had a question about gifts with the holidays coming up. How do we think rationally about how much to spend for each person?
Yeah, that's a super good question. So my family's been thinking about that a ton too. And on my dad's side, we decided we're just not doing gifts for adults this year. We're like for, next generation, so my kids, my brother's kids, we'll do gifts for the kids. But like in some cases, it's kind of a relief sometimes when people are like, I don't really want to exchange gift cards this year. And so I think just having a conversation about what do we think is realistic? What do we think we're getting out of giving each other gifts? Because I think that in some cases there is a little bit of formality to it of you want to show someone that you love them and that you care about them. Is a gift even the best way to do that? Is a card or a family activity? That's kind of what we've gone to a lot more is me and my dad haven't bought each other gifts in quite a while. We just pick something that we're going to go do. The last one that we did, there was a Van Halen tribute band playing at McMiniman's down the road. And so for his birthday, we're like, all right, let's go to this show and just do that together. But as far as setting like expectations and boundaries, I think it probably just comes with a conversation of what's realistic. And again, I'll go back to like, sometimes people might be relieved that they're the only ones who are like, okay, I would really like it to be less of a thing this year, be a little more affordable this year. So just having, if you're trying to tone it down, accepting where you are and raising a hand and saying, hey, this is what I think would work best for me. Are you guys open to that? And might be surprised at how often other people think the same ways. Does that help at all?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody else? All right, well, I really appreciate you all being here today and hope to see some more of you next week. But yeah, I really enjoy seeing all of you. Thank you so much.